finally have the GPD Win 5 in my hands. This was the primary objective of our trip. Let's start by examining its external design. It's important to note that, when compared to the GPD Win 4, this is an entirely distinct device. Regarding screen size, the Win 4 features a 6.0-inch display, whereas the Win 5 boasts a 7.0-inch screen, matching the dimensions of the GPD Win Mini. The overall feel is significantly larger, so please don't assume that only the chip has been replaced and the casing remains the same. The casing has in fact received a substantial upgrade, that's the primary point. Secondly, let's examine its overall exterior design. Since it currently lacks a battery, the device feels even lighter in hand compared to the GPD Win 4. Based on my assessment, its weight is approximately 500 grams. It weighs around 500 grams, perhaps even a bit less. Let's examine its full port configuration. On the top, you'll find a Thunderbolt, a USB 4, and on this side, a USB Type-A. Since it features a 395 cooling system, its dual fan and dual fin heat dissipation setup is quite comparable to what you'd find in laptops. Also, the linear triggers are perfectly functional. Furthermore, the L, R, RB, and LB buttons exhibit some distinct differences from their previous iterations. In the past, they featured a crystal-like design similar to those on the PSP. However, the current GPD Win 5 design introduces several modifications, providing a noticeably more tactile and precise trigger response. Its overall design is very much like the PSP, with volume up, down, and menu buttons on the bottom. Currently, there are no ports at the bottom, but I'm not sure if they will add a Type-C port there in the future. As of now, there are only 2 ports in total, which, to be honest, doesn't quite fit GPD's usual attribute of having many ports. The device feels quite rounded and smooth to the touch, and it's very comfortable to hold. Since there's no battery, it's incredibly lightweight, weighing less than 500 grams, making it exceptionally comfortable to grip. Now let's take a look at its practical aspects. First off, without further ado, let's dive straight into the features. We'll begin by examining the CPU's performance score. We'll start by looking at the CPU it's equipped with. It's not displayed here. Oh, here it is. It's the AMD Ryzen AI 395 with 8060S integrated graphics. So let's check the integrated CPU benchmark score. The multi-core score hit 12,500, no, actually 12,600 points. This kind of score should be comparable to, well, we'll run Cinebench in a bit, but it should be roughly equivalent to around 30,000 points in Cinebench. The single core score is 770 points, which is also consistent with the typical performance you'd expect from a Zen 4. All in all, its performance is looking exceptionally strong right now. Alright, next let's look at the Cinebench R23 scores. We'll skip the single core test and run the multi-core to see how it does. You can all see the score. It's over 30,000 points, just as we estimated. I'm not sure at what wattage it achieved that 30,000, but I'll take a wild guess. A wild guess of around 70 watts. Next, we'll do a stress test for you. A burn-in test to show you its actual performance. Alright, we're currently conducting a CPU-only stress test, and the results align closely with my predictions. Initially, it's drawing around 70 watts, and the temperature is holding steady at 73 degrees, which is quite impressive for its thermal management. We'll let it run for a bit, perhaps 5 minutes, to observe if it can consistently maintain 70 watts under real-world conditions. It's been running for about a minute now, and although it's quite noisy here on site, let's try to gauge the noise coming from the air vent. Ah, I can't measure it. That 80 decibels is clearly just the ambient noise here at the scene. But that's alright. We also brought along this thermal gun. Let's take a look. We'll check the machine's temperature. The screen is only around 43 degrees Celsius, which, if you're familiar with handheld devices, is actually better than the Win Mini's temperature. The temperature of the controller grip is actually a bit lower. In the middle, this central area should be where the CPU is located. Let's observe. It's approximately 45 degrees, around 45 degrees. Below the device, there's a heat source located here, also roughly 45 to 47 degrees. There's a particular spot here, which could possibly be the screen's IC. So the overall temperature is quite manageable. Now let's check the temperature of the grip area. It's at 38 degrees, which is basically body temperature. Overall, it should feel pretty comfortable to use, right around body temperature. And finally, let's look at the temperature of the air vent. The air vent temperature isn't high either. In fact, it's a bit lower than the screen side. The vent only reaches about 43 degrees. I'll actually touch it to get a feel for it. The air coming out just feels slightly warm. Not hot at all. Regarding the overall thermal management, it's still consistently maintaining 70 watts, with the overall temperature hovering around 80 degrees. Of course, there's still a slight upward trend, but I expect this machine to stabilize at around 70 to 80 watts and 80 degrees, which should be a predictable performance. As for its future, since I can't hear the noise level now, I'll move closer for you to listen. From what I can actually hear, the noise level isn't that loud. I feel like it's quieter than the GPD Win Mini when it's running at full capacity. My personal blind guess would be it's probably between 48 and 50 decibels at the machine. It's not a very significant noise, so I believe in the future they could possibly further, by sacrificing a bit of noise and surface temperature, they could improve its performance by sacrificing a bit of noise and surface temperature. 70 watts is not bad, but for an i3050, it might still be leaving some performance on the table. Next, let's look at its actual graphics performance. We're now running ×5, which is a representative DX12 test, to see its overall performance. I predict that at around 70 watts, the 8060S should be able to score around 9,000 points. I'll give you a conservative estimate, 9,000. Let's take a look at the actual performance. Looking at the initial frame rate, it's approximately 60 frames per second. This should result in a time-spy score of roughly 10,000 points, maybe just slightly under. As you can see, the CPU's power consumption is consistently stable at about 68 watts, so the power delivery, in fact, is quite impressive. SoC power is about 70 watts, CPU shows 68, likely with integrated graphics. Temps around 75 degrees, quite cool. This is actually a bit higher than the 65 watt performance output they showed in their official pre-release video. It's quite a welcome improvement, and I even think it could be pushed further. I believe 80 watts should be achievable. Now that our integrated graphics test is halfway through, let's go ahead and measure its temperature again. The CPU area remains at approximately 45 degrees. The spot that was slightly warmer below it has now reached about 49 degrees, making it a bit hotter than previously. The air outlet is still around 41 degrees, which is relatively cool. Therefore, the overall thermal management of this machine is quite impressive, exceeding my expectations significantly. Alright, the results are in. The actual graphics score is, it scored 9,680 points. That's actually a bit higher than I anticipated. Considering it's a 70 watt 395, this should be considered a normal performance output. Due to time constraints, we won't be testing Far Cry Extreme. You can draw your own conclusions by comparison. I'd estimate its performance to be around 11,000 points. Lastly, let's explore some other notable features of this machine. First, the power button is now distinct, unlike previous designs where it was situated on the top. Now it's been relocated to the bottom left corner, making it quite prominent. I'm currently uncertain if it incorporates fingerprint recognition. I'll definitely check with the SAP about that shortly. Furthermore, its current trigger mechanism is now adjustable. It operates as a linear trigger, but if I toggle this setting, it transforms into a tactile stepped trigger that provides feedback. They've also been... Some user-friendly considerations are definitely noticeable. Secondly, the interface located on the back of the device appears to be its battery port. The official package also conveniently includes an approximate 80 watt-hour battery. This design makes it quite convenient for usage. As you can observe, the battery is directly attached to the back as an external component. You simply lift it upwards like this, and for installation, you just attach it in this manner. You simply snap it right into place. Just pinch the buttons on both sides and then let go, and it should easily click right on. Hey, yes, that made a bit of a cracking sound. Actually, it's still slightly loose. We really hope that the final retail version will be made a little more firm and secure. However, once it's completely fixed in place, it feels quite sturdy, and then the entire battery itself doesn't need to be. This device does not need to be shut down, it's hot swappable. As soon as you plug it in, you'll see a battery icon appear indicating it's connected. This battery has a substantial capacity of 80 watt-hours. However, for this particular machine, with its high-performance CPU drawing 70 watts, the actual usage time, if you were to operate it at peak performance, would likely be around an hour. The physical size of this battery is quite... From its appearance, it seems about right, likely around 80 watt-hours, indicating a relatively high overall density. We'll check its actual weight shortly. Additionally, it features a special, subsequently added expansion dock capable of charging the battery. This dock also offers the ability to extend and provide various peripheral interfaces, thereby addressing the device's inherent limitations regarding its own ports. The machine itself is powered by a DC. The device is powered by a DC power supply. It's a 180 watt unit. Since the power cord isn't the final retail version, we won't be testing it out for everyone. And finally, let's take a look at this machine. I just estimated its weight to be around 500 grams, so now we'll actually see what its true weight is. It's a bit heavier than I had anticipated. I currently have an external hard drive connected here. If I unplug it and then remove the cable, the device will shut down. It actually weighs around 600 grams. Given that this is not the final retail version, and there's a power cord attached, plus my setup isn't perfectly stable, just keep in mind it's approximately 600 grams. Next, let's examine the weight of the battery. The battery itself weighs 350 grams, so the two together are about 950 grams. What do you all think? 950 grams is definitely on the heavy side for a 7-inch handheld, but considering its thermal management and the 80 watt-hour battery, I personally feel it's acceptable, because other 80 watt-hour devices like the Ioneo or MSI's handheld are also close to 700 grams, but Their screens are a bit larger than this one, so there's no perfect direct comparison. But overall, without the battery, at around 600 grams in hand, the weight feels quite comfortable to me personally. I don't think it would feel tiring during extended use. And to be frank, I don't really recommend using it with the battery, because with only about an hour of battery life, that's not really the intended use case for this machine. As for this device's screen, we'll skip testing it. It's a 7-inch 120Hz LCD, and the final retail version might have some minor differences. Afterward, we'll bring you a detailed video from the Computex 2025 event. This is the performance of an engineering sample, so I'm not certain when it will be officially released, but I'm truly hoping they can offer it at a more reasonable price point. However, with a $395 inside, the price exceeding $10,000 is probably to be expected. So that's all for this video. We'll be bringing you more videos from CES. Oh, not CES, from Computex. You can stay tuned to our channel for more content. See you next time. Bye-bye.